I navigated along the way being an entrepreneur, so it's really going to be from that perspective of years and years and years of failures, and now not so much a failure, but still progressing, you know. So I hope I can shed some light on what not to do and some tips on navigating branding and design.
Hi guys, I'm Kelsey. I'm extremely passionate about branding, which is why I don't want to turn my deck into a PowerPoint presentation, and that's why I'm finicking over here. I apologize. I'm going to tell you more about myself when I do my intro, but essentially I consider myself a venture marketer, so I'm going to let you permeate on that, and I'll tell you what it means when I present.
Awesome. Okay, and we have one more mentor who's going to come for the fourth presentation. Her name is Europa Stein. She's going to just do her talk. Number 4. Okay, so this is Jonathan Gagne. So you'll find Jonathan's name on the scoring rubric. Give me 1 second just to find this. Everyone got it? Okay, so when you're ready, John, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Gagne. In my previous experience, I created a fraud mitigation system that allowed to lower the false decline transaction. In fact, that was working so much that we doubled our sales, mitigate over 99% of the fraud, and we became the global leader of digital card distribution for PlayStation, Xbox, PaySafeCard, and so on. In fact, we just realized that the customers were willing to pay 20 to 30% extra fee as soon as they can get what they are paying for, which makes totally sense. So now, probably like all browser tracker blocker make the cybersecurity completely deprecated. Probably I partner with IBM. We created a project that is not blocked by the browser, and we can keep tracking fraudsters like never before. With over 300 billion of false decline transactions every year, the market is extremely wide. If you're interested to invest into the cybersecurity or AI industry, please come to see me after. Thank you.
Okay. Think of your scores for Jonathan, and I'm going to ask you to show your scores just by showing your hand all in unison. Yes, everyone's got it. Everyone knows what it is. Okay, 1, 2, 3 scores for Jonathan. 5, 2, 2. Okay, so start with you, Angela. Why a 2?
It was a good amount of time in terms of length and like enunciation. I just didn't really catch the problem. I know cybersecurity, false. Maybe it was just me, I just didn't catch exactly what you did. It was false declines, so credit cards?
Falsely declined transaction.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
so for me, it was just, I didn't understand, so it just didn't feel right just randomly throwing a 4, but yeah, apart from that, it's just I really didn't catch.
Okay, Jess?
Mine was super similar to Angela's, that I wasn't quite sure what the problem was, but even still declined.
Yeah.
The payment, I'm not quite sure how to tie that into it, but it sounds as though you really understand the problem, and it's a good industry, and then you also understand the market size. So I think that that's a bonus.
All right, thanks.
Am I supposed to use this?
We're videoing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the live stream.
Okay. I'm tuning in live. Well, I gave it a 5 because when I'm judging a pitch, I just want to get enough of my interest to see if I want to have a further conversation with you. And for me, you pegged my interest with a few of the different things. The big brand name helps, so the fact that you can experience with those ones that you mentioned, and then you have a partnership with IBM. Those are the big things for me, and it was just enough that I was like, yeah, I want to talk to this guy more.
Okay, good. Good job. All right. Next up is Pooja from Braze Mobility.
So once we click post, what do we do here?
So you enter the score and you just hit post, and that's it. And if you want to
Stays on the
comment,
page.
yeah, huh?
Then it stays on the page. Just change person.
Yeah, change person. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so everyone in the first row, I want you to turn around and try to see the feet of the person behind you. This is a repeat for some of you guys. All right, that took some effort. Now imagine your chair was a wheelchair and you didn't have the upper body mobility to be able to do what you just did. This is a reality for over 1 million power wheelchair users, power wheelchair and scooter users in the US alone. And according to a report, 20% of these users had experienced at least one major collision within the last year, and 11% of them have been hospitalized. At Braze Mobility, we've developed the world's first blind spot sensors that can attach to any regular wheelchair and transform it into a smart wheelchair that automatically detects obstacles and provides multimodal feedback to the driver. And it's still robust. Our market size is $1.2 billion, and we're partnered with the largest wheelchair controller manufacturer in the world, as well as the 2 top wheelchair distributors in the US. We are Braze Mobility, and our mission is to enable wheelchair users all over the world to navigate boldly, independently, and safely. Thank you.
All right. All right, Pooja, you know, your okay, we'll do the show of hands for Pooja. 1, 2, 3, score. 5, 5, 5. Okay. All right. All right. So Kelsey.
Just really solid pitch. I love the stats. I love the partnership. I love the market size. I loved everything about it. The demonstration. I love that you went with the flow. I love that you apologized for the people who had heard the pitch before, but still acknowledged that we hadn't. And I just thought everybody could definitely take notes from Pooja. Are you all taking notes?
Okay. Yeah, I thought you did a great job with your pitch. I think that the story that you opened with was awesome, really caught my attention, and then at the end you summarized exactly what the problem was, and I think that it's a really great problem to solve. The partnerships are really good job.
Yeah, it was clear, concise. I like that you led with an example, which makes it very real. And then also I like that it was a clear pain point and a clear solution. So, good stuff.
Okay, awesome. So this is Javed.
A little nervous.
And then we'll have Bolus after Javed.
All right, I might look at my notes.
Okay, when you're ready, 1 minute.
All right, I have a quick question. Who's the first generation immigrant here? All right, so am I. So as all you can relate, the biggest, so when we arrive into Canada, it takes us 6 to 9 months to actually integrate into the system and to find a job that we really would like. So every year, over 300,000 newcomers come to Canada, and in the beginning, they had no idea how to generate some cash in order to pay for their basic bills, such as housing, food, or transportation. Every single one of us has a skill that we can monetize on. And the skills is our platform. It's a community marketplace where people can outsource their tasks to newcomers and find services, which in turn would decrease the financial burden on the newcomers. So this would, newcomers can leverage their skills and can generate some cash through connections within the community.
Okay, time's up. All right.
It's a lot
Okay.
harder than I thought.
We'll do the scores for Javed. 1, 2, 3 scores. 4, 2, 2. Okay, start with Kelsey.
I'm super compelled, and again, what I look for in the pitch is just something enough like for us to want to have a conversation later, and I love that. If you believed in yourself more, I would have given you a better score.
Sure.
So I think everybody needs to just practice more in the mirror and be your own biggest fan, because if you want someone to bet on you, you have to bet on yourself. I think it was sweet that you told us you were nervous at the beginning, but it also set the tone that you were going to be nervous, so I was expecting you to be nervous.
Yeah, I think it's the sugar direction.
Yeah, well maybe, but if you want to get it to a 5, you got to have some bravado, a little self-confidence.
Yeah, similar to what Kelsey said with the confidence coming out in the intro, could do a bit of work. And I liked the puzzle where you framed it, but I wasn't quite exactly sure what the opportunity was and what that looked like.
Okay.
Yeah, on my side, just real quick, my main advice or takeaway would be try to maybe get to the point a little sooner, so maybe ran out of time. So at the beginning I was interested, but then it kind of went a little too long, you know, so just try to captivate people's attention by keeping it short and sweet, but I'm sure with a bit of practice that you'll get there.
Okay, good. All right. So this is Bolis, B-O-L-I-S, and then after Bolis will be Joe. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, hold on, wait.
So I start before you tell me?
Yeah. Go. Yeah.
According to the U.S. Department of Energy, widespread use of LED lighting has the greatest potential impact on energy savings. By the year 2027, widespread energy conversion to LED lighting could save about 348 terawatts of electricity. That's the equivalent to $30 billion at today's electricity prices. And that's in the US alone. Now that's what I call clean tech. The sad reality is that most businesses can't convert to LED lighting easily because it's not as easy as changing a bulb like in your home. They need something, what we call in industry an LED retrofit, and it's a complete lighting renovation. And this is a global market that's set to attain a value of $4.6 billion by the year 2025, according to QI Research. At Argentum, we've developed a system for LED retrofits called Spacer. Spacer decreases the cost of an LED retrofit for businesses, decreases installation time for electrical contractors by up to 20%, and pushes the limits of energy efficiency using our advanced sensor and automation system.
5 seconds.
My name is Bolis, I'm CEO at Argentum, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll show the scores for Bolis. 1, 2, 3 scores. 4, 5, 2. Okay, so let's start with you, Henry. 4.
Yeah, main feedback was probably, like I thought the problem was clear, solution was pretty clear, but two main things. Again, try not to cram so much into it. Just get to the main problem, the main solution, and then people will come and ask questions on the details. And then the second thing is just obviously, it would be more convincing if you didn't read.
Yeah.
You spoke well, so just try to, you know, if you believe in it and you get used to it, you won't need to read.
Experimenting with the pitch.
Yeah.
I thought that the pitch was great. I think that there's a lot of opportunity with the business in general, and kind of controversial to what was just said. I kind of liked how you gave all the examples because I was able to understand exactly what the product was and the problem was.
Gotcha. It's because I took your mic.
No, I can always find a microphone, trust me. My challenge is you didn't make eye contact with me once.
Okay.
And so for me, I'm like, do I want to have a deeper conversation with this guy? I felt like you just spewed like fire hose information at me. So I want you to take the second half of your pitch, put it at the beginning. Stop, make that eye contact, and if you're gonna make a joke about like clean tech, like don't just be like, that's what I call clean tech and like burrow through to deliver it for me, because I totally would have laughed.
Okay.
And honestly, fantastic pitch. Just practice and get comfortable with yourself because it's that eye contact and the connection I'm looking for, and I didn't get it.
Cool.
Okay, good. Thank you. Right, this is Joe Chen. Yeah, when you're ready.
Do you know that each year there are more than 7 million people applying for Canadian immigration visa? It is a $5 billion market in Canada alone. The reality is people like me are paying higher prices to unlicensed, unregulated agencies due to a language barrier and lack of knowledge. My name is Joe Chen. Our company, I refer to IAI, is building an immigration and visa marketplace that helps immigrants to do their application by themselves or hire a lawyer. We provide our customers with assessment, autofill application forms, and options to hire a lawyer. Our platform charges a fee for subscription and a fee per lawyer hiring. Our service, comparing to any existing agency, will cost 10 times less. We believe no immigrants should pay more for less service. Thank you.
All right, we'll look at scores for Joe. 1, 2, 3 score. That's a 4, 4, 4. Okay, start with you.
I thought the pitch was good. I think that the AI marketplace and developing and using that to develop the marketplace is a really good play. The only thing that I would say is just practicing the pitch.
Similar feedback. I think it was a good pitch. Clear problem and solution. I like the fact that you made it a bit personal. Like people like me, so you know about the problem, you know about the pain. Main feedback is really just getting comfortable, so you don't have to read. So just once you get that comfort, it'll just feel more authentic.
Same kind of idea. Again, I would like to see the pitch sort of rejig a tiny bit, where you kind of explain it a little bit more at the beginning. I think that you highlighted the problem well, but I think that you could get through that piece just a tiny bit faster.
Okay, good, thank you. This is Nabil, and after Nabil we'll have Alfaro. Okay.
Have you ever worn a fragrance and went to the store to buy it again and found out it's been discontinued? The fragrance market is driven by new products being released every year. That means hundreds of fragrances are becoming unavailable, and loyal users are consistently looking for their scent and can't find it anywhere. 1 in 20 products will be discontinued this year. In North America, fragrance sales are over $10 billion. Discontinued items will be worth $500 million. My company, Century, solved that problem by developing and building a marketplace for classic and discontinued fragrances. I've been in the industry for 20 years and worked with the biggest names in the game and built an unrivaled supply network for these perfumes. Century's been in business for less than 2 years, has done over $100,000 in sales in the last 52 weeks through one channel without any marketing. I'm building I'm building a team to scale this business and to become the biggest fragrance marketplace in the world.
Okay. Okay, score for Nabil, 1, 2, 3 scores. 4, 4, 5, okay? Angelo, Mr. Frag, you probably wear a lot of fragrances, right?
Yeah, good pitch. Similar thing, just practice, you won't have to read. It'll feel a bit more convincing, confidence and just a little, like you said, make eye contact, a little more, authentic. But from a problem standpoint, again, I know nothing about the industry, but the way you presented it, the fact that you have knowledge in the industry, I definitely want to, come chat with you later to learn more. So I think that's definitely intriguing.
Thank you.
Yeah, similar to that, I thought that you did a good job with the pitch because I don't necessarily resonate with the target market, but in my mind I was like, oh, I can think of these people that I know that would. And then when you brought in your connections and your experience, and then the fact that you actually have revenue coming in, that really drove home.
So you have a bit of a handicap from me because I think my partner scared the shit out of you before your pitch, and that's probably why you didn't look at me the whole time. So I'm going to give you that. I used to work for Revlon, as I'll tell you guys, so this is a really big thing for me. So I love the idea. I love the pitch, but you gotta you know what you're doing. You know how to sell it. I think you were just nervous, but it's a 5. Don't read. Don't let me catch you reading again.
Okay, good. Alfaro, it's A-L-F-E-R-O, okay. Alfaro, and then Chris is next. Okay.
When my family goes shopping for groceries, we start the day at Costco, then we go to Fortino's, food basics, then we go to Metro, No Frills, Zehrs, Walmart, Whole Foods. It takes an whole day. Not because we want to, not because we enjoy the variety, but because we have to. My name is Alfaro. I'm the co-founder of Vegan Zone. Vegan Zone is an online curated marketplace that brings all the plant-based products into one place. And at Vegan Zone, customers will be able to order and get the products delivered to their house within 48 hours. We believe that Vegan Zone is in the right place at the right time to bring the plant-based products experience to the masses.
Okay. Okay, score for Alfaro from Vegan Zone, 1, 2, 3 scores. 5, 2, 4. Okay, we'll start with Kelsey. You guys have comments, so you can still go enter them. Kelsey.
So I love how you started with that story because I was like, why are you going to so many grocery stores? Like, you need to do something better with, like, I was like, why is this? I understand, like, 2 grocery stores or 3, so that clipped me, and then I have similar problems, so I understand the challenges, and I think anybody who has any sort of food issue would get that. So I love the story, I love the pitch, and I think it is a great sounding solution. I would love to hear more.
I'm actually going to change mine up to a 4, only because I think I was basing it on not being familiar with the market space, but understanding the story that you're trying to tell and then having a curated marketplace because it's a really smart idea.
Yeah, same. So from my presentation point of view, like good projection, good eye contact, just captivating. Maybe less examples. Like I think 10. You know, if you only have a minute, maybe say 5. That's just a small note. We'll get the picture. But I like the problems. Similar to her, like I don't know enough, but I didn't let that bias me. But it would make me curious to talk to you to kind of be like, is this really a problem? Like, what happens if they start carrying more lines? Like I definitely at least want to talk to you. So yeah, overall good stuff.
Cool. Is Zares a place? Here in Canada? I don't know either. Zares. All right. Good stuff. All right, Chris Anderson. Okay.
Hello, hi. I'm Chris Anderson. So my platform is called storagesplit.com, which is essentially an Airbnb, but for self-storage. So that is if you have extra space in your home that you want to rent out, and if another person has extra luggages, they're looking for space, they can come to my website and they can find each other. So this is a very growing industry. In US, it's almost a $40 billion a year revenue industry. In Canada, it's roughly around $3 to $5 billion a year. So there's a huge opportunity in this marketplace. And my revenue model is that 25% of the overall transaction value. And we will be providing insurance for any lost or damaged items. That's it.
Okay. All right, we'll take the scores for Chris. 1, 2, 3 scores. 2, 4, 4. Okay. Angela, 4.
Yeah, the pitch was concise, good eye contact, I like that. The problem was clear. I just think the solution, like, you know, it usually works when you say like Airbnb for, so it makes sense. I didn't really get what you're doing specifically. You know, I could kind of imagine, but maybe just a little more on like, what's your solution? And maybe the pain point from an industry perspective was interesting. Like, okay, if it's a $30 billion industry, but it'd be good to maybe resonate a little more like, what is the pain point? So like, you know, when I go traveling, or every winter I have a pair of skis, I gotta keep this, and if I can only store them somewhere, I don't know, that's just my 2 cents. Maybe it's a horrible idea, but take it with a grain of salt.
In my mind, was a 2 until at the end when you mentioned the security and like how you were going to mitigate that. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about holding people's stuff in my house, and I was like, what if something happens? And but I do think that there is an opportunity there. I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about the market, but good job.
Mine is a little biased because there was just someone at the Techstars female founder mentorship who had this exact business model, and one thing she had that was a big differentiator was she already had established partnerships with several different condos and places, and so the reason I'm giving context, in your explanation here, you talk a lot about marketing spend and that you want to raise $100,000, but most of it's going to go to marketing. I think you could really cut that down, put it into your tech, and do a lot of door-to-door sales. And so that's sort of where my comment's coming from. But it was good, and it could be great.
Okay, thanks. So, Jack Leo.
This one?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
All right, you're ready.
Yeah. Orbitfeed is a cloud-based software platform that allows construction engineers use artificial intelligence and computer vision to create 3D models lightning fast. It takes a week-long, tedious, and painstaking process into less than 10 minutes. And our customers saying it saves them more than 50 times in time savings, more than 10 times in cost savings, and significant reduction in the human error in their line of work. In fact, the best part, it integrates seamlessly with their current workflow, allows them to upload the reference files, go have a coffee, and we send back the 3D models that they can download. And they only pay when they're satisfied with the quality. Mine's Jack, and we're disrupting a $12 trillion engineering construction business. Thank you.
Okay. Is Thomas here? Okay. All right, scores for Jack. 1, 2, 3, score. 4, 4, 5. Okay, I'll start with Jess. Sure.
I thought you did a great job on the pitch. I saw you practicing earlier, and I think that you did a really, really awesome job. I love that you're focusing on making a current process more efficient. I think that that's a really great target market. I'm just curious a little bit more about their competition and what else is out there, but I think that you did a really great job.
I loved the whole pitch. I loved your shirt because it reminds me of Sailor Moon. And I especially love that you ended with the size of the market you're disrupting. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, my only feedback is just practice a little more, but in terms of the actual structure of the pitch and the way you presented it was good, solid, clear pain and problem, and again, I like to touch on the market size at the end to be, okay, this is a big problem. I would say just a little practice in terms of presentation and confidence, but the rest was there.
Okay, good. This is Thomas.
So every Sunday, I go to Costco, Metro, Northfields, whatever, all these stores just to complete one shopping trip, and the experience is not at all good. And this is the typical experience of many consumers out there who are looking for plant-based products. My name is Thomas. Hello to you all. I'm the CEO and co-founder at It's All Good. It's All Good is a curated marketplace that's making the plant-based experience accessible, easy, and convenient to the masses. You can think of It's All Good as an Amazon for premium. You can think of It's All Good as a premium Amazon for all things good. Healthy, plant-based, eco-friendly, and sustainable. Talk about food, talk about home supplies, talk about fashion, you name it, you can find it there. You can order, purchase, and it will be delivered to you within the next 48 hours. Right now, it's a $10.5 billion industry, and it's estimated to grow to a $16.3 billion industry by 2025.
10 seconds.
We believe It's All Good is a solution that people are looking for an all-good solution, for an all-good experience, for an all-good shopping experience and lifestyle. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You guys gotta level with me first. Are you co-founder?
But you're vegan, so then you're going with All Good.
So we're trying to see how we
okay. Just so they know, co-founders of the same company. So you just heard
Oh my god, I thought you guys were punking me.
What's the difference? Why aren't they taking
I didn't know what was happening.
If he said vegan zone, you would have got it. Like you'd see.
Well, it said vegan zone here,
Yeah.
hence my extra confusion.
It's all good, guys. It's all good. All right, scores. Figure, just enter your, I'll give you another second to get it. All right, scores for Thomas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4. You can't do 3, so is that it? That's a 2. Okay, 4, 4, 2. All right. Okay, let's go with Kelsey.
I probably would have given you 5 if I wasn't so confused, man.
Yeah.
It was great, but you guys
yeah, so the reason for the 4 would be maybe highlighting the competitive edge. Because as soon as you got up there, I was like, this sounds really similar to the other business. But then even still knowing that you guys are co-founders, talking about competition wouldn't necessarily
it's all good, baby smile every time you were saying
Yeah,
it's all
I
good. I was
really
like,
like
it's all
that.
good.
That's my mom.
It's all good.
I just thought you stole his idea.
Yeah. No. So the two on my end is not even being harsh. I thought it was a good presentation. Just the only reason is you know, tripped up a couple of times. It's not a big deal. It's just, you know, practice a little more. My only comment in terms of feedback is the solution maybe was a little too generic. You know, so it wasn't just like we're solving this, like we're doing this and close and premium. So it felt a little too wide, just as a personal opinion. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But I thought maybe like, okay, what are they really solving? So the pain point of lower menu groceries made sense, but then it was like you threw in clothes and food and this. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's Amazon. You know, I didn't see the differentiation in that sense. So.
I like you guys took the opportunity.
Yeah, to test both. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. We're good. We did a lot of good pitches. Let's just start. So we're going to go with Jess first. The other two mentors, if you want, you can sit over here just to see the talk. I think Kelsey's going to go third. I think you still need some time with your slides, and then so we'll go Angelo.
Oh, yeah, what's happening?
We just need to hook up your computer last, basically. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
good. We just have to put you last to make sure that the kerning's right.
Sweet.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
It's fine, don't worry.
I don't know where's best. Okay, great. So as you guys saw in the intro, gave you a little bit of the background.
We'll use a microphone. We'll put it on that stand if you want, just for the audio recording.
Yes. AV isn't my strong point. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Close
cool.
to the camera.
Yeah, so as you guys found out in my intro, you learned a little bit more about me, where I came from. I have a strong sales background, more so than the actual design aspect of branding, but I'll highlight that a little bit more throughout my presentation. So I went over my presentation with my cousin last night, and she slipped this in there, and I didn't notice it until she actually, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the app Carrot Rewards. Yeah, so she was a co-founder of Carrot, but that doesn't give her the credibility to add this into my intro. But it was a picture from back in the day when I used to, so my career started in business sales, door-to-door, 100% commission, downtown Toronto. So the importance of brand at that point in time was, above all, the most important thing, because I was selling debit machines. So as you guys are familiar, the 99.9% of any business that sells things has a debit machine already. So the only thing that you were selling to them on a daily basis was brand. So in this presentation, I'll go over these 6 highlights for selling the brand. The first being your brand speaks for you. So if you put in the work up front to create the brand, as I'll go through in the other steps, you will have a brand that when you go out into the marketplace and you're talking with your competition or you're talking with your customers, you'll be able to hopefully have something that's well recognized. But it's also about making sure that the customers that you're positioning the brand to are in fact the correct customers. So branding isn't about positioning yourself as the best, it's about positioning yourself to the best customer. So an example of this would be, is anybody familiar with Ecobee? So they do, yeah, okay. So they do monitoring systems for the home and to make it efficient for your power. And they are like top of the line. And so there was a panel with Ecobee, the panel had Hive on it. And so what they are is their competition. And so one of the questions that they were asked when they were on the panel is, in fact, are you concerned about your main competitor? And their response was no, because in fact they've laid the groundworks for the marketplace and they've branded it well, and now we know exactly who our customers are. It's the ones that fall off of the price point that they have to offer. So you can, as long as your brand is aligning with your customer, then you're in good shape. So another example of this is no frills. So you wouldn't necessarily, you're not going to, if you're going to Pusateri's, you're going to Pusateri's for a specific reason, for a specific product, and you know exactly what that is. No Frills by no means is trying to be the best of the best with their brand. They're just being very good at exactly what they need to be good at. The next is to listen. The customer is always right. This isn't always true, but they're the ones that are buying it. So you have to kind of agree with them at some point in time. So when you're speaking to the customer, I think, did you guys spend time on customer personas recently? Is that, okay, so you guys have a good idea of what your customer persona is and how you're gonna apply that. So next you need to make sure that you're testing the brand. So the brand that you choose that speaks for you, take it out into the marketplace and ask the questions. So make sure that you are asking the correct customer personas. It doesn't hurt to reach out to, I mean, your aunt, your uncle that might not fit that, as long as you can gather the information correctly. But the more customer personas that you can talk to, the better off you're going to be. Make sure that you're asking the right questions. Below is a few examples of those questions. I also have a worksheet that I will send over to someone after this, and then they can distribute it throughout the class. It's kind of like a different spreadsheet that you can use to run through this activity yourselves. But make sure that when you're asking the questions, the most important thing is the responding. So don't ask the yes or no questions, and make sure that you're asking open-ended ones and don't guide the answers that they're giving you about your brand, because the result that you want after you're testing the brand is to be able to go out there and have the confidence that you need to have in your brand and be able to stand up even when you give your pitches. If somebody has a comment against the brand, if you've done your research and you follow the steps, then you'll be able to answer any of those questions. Stand up for what you believe. So out of our, the company Code and Mortar, where we do websites, apps, and software, we've actually spun out a few startups. So this is an example of the brand testing that we've done in the past. Does anybody want to take a guess at what any of those might represent? There's like some really terrible ones. The company's been around for about 20 years, so some like 20 years ago might have made sense. So an example would be Homes. So in the bottom right-hand corner, Homes is actually a search engine for plugin for WordPress that we developed that is very specific. We use it on legal sites more often than not. And then the other one on the far right corner is Pursue It. So it's a crowdfunding platform for amateur athletes. So similar to what I'll say in the slides coming up, your brand is important. The logo is important, but evolution happens. And so an example of that would be Hashpipe. So the top right-hand corner, that was actually what we developed during the Sochi Olympics. And it was like the first of its kind for hashtags. So you have no idea what that was, but for example. So, but hashtags do exist.
I would think it's for drug.
Pardon?
I would think it's for drug.
Actually, you're not the first person that said that. That's why, yeah, we took that one out of proposals moving forward. But yeah, you would, and you know what? That would be relevant today. Yeah.
Absolutely.
True, but no, that's not it actually. Hashtag for the Olympics. Keeping in mind that you do want to make sure that you're doing the unexpected. So even though you're doing your customer interviews, you're understanding your customer personas, you're meeting with the right people, you're gathering the right information, don't be afraid to step outside of the lines. And an example of that is Seth Godin's Purple Cow. Are you guys familiar with the Purple Cow story?
No.
So where you're like driving down the street, you're like, it's a cow, it's a cow, it's a cow, and you're just hanging out with your family, and then all of a sudden you see a purple cow, and you're like, oh my god, it's a purple cow. And then you just end up talking about the purple cow for the rest of the ride. It sticks out, nobody knows that. Well, you can Google them. He has some good information out there. So that's something that we kept in mind. So the company, prior to its current name, used to be called Norex, which does sound a lot like Norwax, which also reminds you of cleaning supplies. So there were a lot of phone calls that ended with like, no thanks, I have all my cleaning supplies, I don't need your help. And I was like, yeah, right, that's fine. You guys aren't for us anyway, it's not a big deal. It depends on what time of day you go. I might push hard on that. And so this is the rebrand that we came up with when stepping outside the box a bit. Can anybody take, I guess I've said the brand over and over again, so this might be a terrible question to ask at this point in time, but if you were to look at it, how would you read it? Yeah, so we get a lot of different answers. We get code plus mortar, code and more, code mortar, but it's actually code and mortar. So code and mortar, similar to bricks and mortar, but we're actually coding your site. It's nothing super special, but it's something memorable. So what we did is when we did our customer interviews, we found out that 88% of our target market actually recognized it as being in the development shop area. So knowing that we did websites, apps, software. And then 77, surprisingly, this is a really surprising statistic, but 77% of people were able to guess that we were somewhere in the technology industry, even if they weren't our direct customers. So those would be your aunts and your uncles that you decided to talk to about it. But here we stepped out, we did something that was considered different for us at the time, and it paid off. The next is to keep in mind the one-liner. So you have your logo, you have your brand, not necessarily confirmed, but you have some good research done on it. You want to make sure that you take into account the one-liner, which is what can represent your entire brand that follows the logo that you show people. So I took an example from a popular, well, maybe it's not popular, but something that you guys might well recognize, which is the one-liner is similar to dating in the sense that you have one chance. I hope none of you are in this class. Like, I feel like you'll be like, oh no, it's definitely not me. But anyway, should put circles over the faces. I don't know. But the point here is that branding is like dating. So you have like one chance, one opportunity to really drive it home, and you want to make sure that that is as simplified and as distilled as possible when representing your brand, because nobody wants to read 5 or 6 sentences. They want to know why you're there, what your advantage is, as quickly as possible.
Can I just say, make sure that the like, I'm a romantic and a gentleman, and he's shirtless surrounded by you like make them match.
I also like that it was a venture capitalist.
Yeah.
Like to stay active and volunteer.
Together.
I was so very confused by what's happening. But he's also the CEO at Self-Employed. Anyway, the takeaway from this slide, again, I super hope that he's not in the audience right now, is that the one-liner is very important. So even though it seems like it's a very simple part of the branding, it needs to drive home exactly what you're trying to communicate and as sweet as possible. Number 5 is don't stress, brands evolve. So it's super important to remember. I'm sure that as entrepreneurs, you guys are very familiar with this, which is like, it doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be good, and you need to get it done, you need to get it out there. And if you're not, I'm certain that you guys will learn that very quickly. So once you have an idea about your brand, and you have the customer research to back it up, and you can get started going with it, go with it. Don't wait until the perfect moment to get everything and all the stars aligned. The customer's always right, it's supposed to be there, but it wasn't, so just disregard that. But an example of brand evolving is Slack. So it wasn't an entire rebrand, but in, I believe it was January of this year. If you guys haven't had a chance to read this story of how it came to be, it's a pretty cool article. It's just a cool reminder that things are going to change as your business evolves, and it's fine, and you can acknowledge it, and you can communicate that and use it as an opportunity to build your community with your users and with your customers. So it's not a huge deal if a year down the line you decide that something aligns differently. So with Slack, I think that one of their main concerns was that they had too many symbols happening, and so they wanted to simplify it into the one. And then they actually have, I'll send out the link after too, so you guys can read up on it, or you can probably just Google it, it exists there. But they were saying that even the perspective of like changing a hashtag, if it wasn't on a white background with the right angle on the exact right screen, then it showed a completely different representation of what they stood for, which was something that they wouldn't have foreseen prior to launching. So again, they just focused on what was good, not what was perfect, got it out there, and used the opportunity to rebrand as building trust with their customers in the future. Number 6 is believe. Similar to what I started off with, where in the field I was selling literally just a brand because everybody already has a product in their hands. You need to make sure that you believe in your brand, and from doing all of the research and making sure that you understand who your target market is, and they have validated the brand, that's what matters the most. And then once you have that confidence, you can instill that within your sales team. They can hit the ground running. So in summary, there's just going to drive home an air scan. I swear I don't work for them anymore. Somehow made it into this presentation way too many times. 6 highlights. Your brand speaks for you. So if you have a good brand, you won't have too much to sell with the product. Listen, so make sure you're listening to your customer reviews, and that you're out there and you're doing the research, as many opportunities to as many people as you get to talk to. Do the unexpected. So similar to the purple cow, which didn't resonate with anybody out here, but make sure that even though you do understand exactly what your target market is, don't be afraid to step outside the lines. The one-liner, short, sweet. Now I keep thinking about that. First one.
He's a gentleman.
Take a look at here. The one-liner, so keep it short, keep it sweet, making sure that it drives home exactly what you're trying to communicate with your business. Don't stress, brands evolve. Again, needs to be good, doesn't need to be perfect. Actually, you know what, I have a good activity for the one-liner that I'll send out too. So I owe 2 things. I owe customer interviews and information about the one-liner. And then number 6, anybody can hold me accountable to that. Number 6 is believe, so make sure that you believe in your brand, and then all the other highlights fall into place. That is it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go right into Angelo, and we'll do some Q&A at the end with all 4 presenters. Aropa's just arrived as well, so this is you, buddy. I see it. All right.
Test 1, 2, okay, there we go. All right, so I'm like many of you guys, entrepreneur at heart. I'm a little withered, 10 years of just failing, where there's a way. I used to be 6'2", Jack, and now I'm just this little man. I wanted to make this as useful as possible, so I'm coming from a different perspective. Obviously tonight's about branding and design, so it's good that you have 2 great people who are going to actually talk about branding and design. My talk's going to be a little bit more about how I went around branding and design without really knowing anything, and from startup to my most recent startup, which is Whisk. And so as a quick background on me before I jump into here, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. So like honestly selling things door to door, selling things online, every little thing you could think of, I did. I was doing websites when I was like 10 years old. Et cetera, et cetera. A lot of failures along the way. And the most recent startup, Whisk, where it really started taking off is when I met Sunil because of getting into the Techstars program here in Toronto. And that accelerated things for me. But one of the things that resonated with me the most was taking advice from people, and sometimes you get what they call, mentor whiplash. You get a lot of different advice and you don't know what to take. So my advice to you is take my advice with a grain of salt, and if it resonates, great, and if it doesn't, no problem. So I broke it down really into kind of 7 tips. Okay, great, 7 steps or tips. Let's see if I can do the 7th answer. All right. So the first one is branding a vitamin versus a painkiller. So when you think about what you're trying to do, you want to really be solving a big problem. That feels better. You're trying to solve a big problem. So really the idea is that from my point of view, again, this is from an entrepreneur standpoint, so I'm not hating on branding in any way. It's just what I've realized over the years is that if you're solving a really big problem, you can afford to care a little less about branding, at least in the early days. Of course, you'll get to that point. And so my philosophy is solve a big problem, a big pain point, something people hate that you're actually solving, and they'll be lenient with your logo. Like, if you're solving, that wheelchair thing, if you're solving a big problem and your name was this versus that, no one's gonna be like, I don't know, name's a little off, right? So the biggest advice I give you in terms of my first piece of advice is find a big solution versus a painkiller. So for Whisk, just to give some context, it was bar inventory. And it might not resonate with everyone, but for people in the industry, it was hours upon hours of actually taking all of these bottles at the end of the night when you're exhausted, putting them, let's see if this will work. This is, I definitely can't click on that. All right, well, it was a video. So it was hours, yeah?
I got you.
Hours upon hours of just weighing every single bottle on a scale, putting it into a spreadsheet, and then later putting it into Excel. So most people would do this on a weekly basis. You're talking about 4 or 5 hours a week of just counting. So this was us in the early days. This is actually me filming someone as I was learning, just doing market research. So literally it's like, how are you doing this right now? You do this every week, counting it like this. And hey, okay, great. And then maybe it's only a nightclub. Let me talk to other restaurants. Let me talk to bars. Maybe let me talk to high-end bars. Maybe mom and pop shops. And more I realized that the problem was widespread. So my first point is really focus on the pain point. And this was us actually weighing empty bottles to do as much of the legwork as possible so that when the users used the app, they had a great experience. The next point I have that hopefully you guys can take is pivot. So maybe you guys remember this Friends episode, but as many of you know, and if you don't, get ready, you'll probably pivot a few times. And if you're gonna pivot a few times, all I'm saying is don't worry about being perfect, all right? Perfection will kill you in a startup. I mean, there's many things that'll kill you, but perfection is one of them. And so if you focus too much on being perfect, what's gonna happen is you're gonna evolve anyways, your target market might change, so many things might change. So don't focus too much on the small details early on. Again, grain of salt. So a couple of little examples here, so to get you guys involved. What company originally started by selling snowboards under the name Twisted Pixel?
Yeah.
Shopify, right? Oh, there, okay, I pointed at the wrong person. I'm like, yeah. So Shopify, right? So, okay, interesting. And again, I'm shortening the stories. It wasn't, but they actually were selling snowboards, and the very, very short, concise version is just, at first that was the business, selling snowboards, but then they realized they had a really nice user interface and e-commerce, setup, and then they began selling that. So that's the very short version. The next one, whose original slogan was tune in, hook up? Okay, I heard of Tinder. Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, it was YouTube. So what's interesting here is that YouTube started off as a dating site, and the idea was that you were supposed to upload videos of yourself so other people kind of get to know you. And fast forward, again, short version of the story, realized there was a bigger market and they were getting a lot of traction, so they went for a wider audience, got bought by Google, and yada. But you get the idea. So again, another example of a big pivot. Third one, maybe some of you guys know this, I'll be honest, I didn't know this one, I had to Google this one, but apparently there's the game called, you can't see it. Apparently there was a game called Glitch. Does anyone know what this game evolved into? It was a game which was mostly like a social aspect, like meeting people in the game, that kind of thing. No? Anyone else? No? You were all very close. Slack. So it evolved into Slack. So funny enough, they're working on that idea, and then the idea came up of conversational chat within the workplace. Again, very short version of the story, and that's when Slack was born. So the reason I'm telling you this, and these are 3 examples, there's probably a million examples of bad pivots. But the point I'm trying to make is because you're going to pivot, don't worry too much in the early days about having the perfect colors and the perfect everything. Things are going to evolve, okay? Third thing, define brand colors. So this is just like a way to just do the minimal work, let's say, at least to start off with. Even if it'll evolve, just figure out your palettes, your color palette you're gonna use, just for consistency. It's just an easy way to, let's say, be consistent across different platforms and different marketing material, whether it's print or online or etc. So for us, I'll show you an example. This was in the early days when our name was Botilo. I'm embarrassed to say that, but that was the name, Botilo. This was some wireframes. This was one of the first logos. What else we got here? This was an evolution of the logo. We never really went live with this, but just to show you, like, that looks like bowling pins on the right, so you would probably confuse us with that. And then it kind of evolved into bar inventory. Then we took bar inventory out, went beverage intelligence, tried to be more generic, and then we're like, switch to inventory analytics. Now we just go with WISP, but I just scrap everything. And to be honest, it'll probably evolve, but the point is, because it's going to evolve, just at the very least have like, your brand colors down packed, just so things are consistent. When those brand colors change, you'll be able to change that. And here's an example of our current brand color, so this is what we use. These are some examples of icons that we built, illustrations we built on our website, some marketing material, Facebook ads example, Touch Bistro partnership, etc. So it just gives you a little idea. Number four is what happens beyond the brand colors. And for me, that was experience, because what I realized is that people are forgiving of your color palette, they're not forgiving of the experience. So if you're trying to reach someone, for instance, and you're on customer support and you're waiting 10 minutes and you get transferred, you're fucking pissed, let's be honest. You're really angry, right? So like at that point, you're not like, oh, I had a great experience. And experience is really a part of the brand, a big part of the brand. So for WISP, we make sure that the experience is kind of cohesive across the brand. So this was an example more on the sales side, but in the early days, we built gift baskets with like a WISP wine bottle and a Bluetooth scale, which is what we use, and we give them to some of the more high-end restaurants to try to get them on board, so then we can leverage them when trying to get other Toronto restaurants. So when we get like Thompson Hotel, Jacobs, Buka, etc., kind of that was just a little hack we did. But from the user experience of onboarding, right? How do we make it easy for clients to build their bottle database? Making it easy to speak to an actual human, right? So for us, that means that if they're on our website, there's always a drift bot. If they're using our web app or mobile app, they're able to talk to someone instantly on intercom. So this is examples of our app. So our whole philosophy in terms of experience was A, giving immediate response, and then B, just really being transparent. So everything we do is transparent, including our pricing on our page. Number 5, and there's just 2 more, don't worry. Number 5 is utilizing free resources. This one, I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with most of these, but these are just a couple of free resources that we've used in the early days. So the Noun project, flat icon, great for icons. Font awesome. Coolers is pretty cool to figure out like a color palette. Like you find a color you like, and then you can keep going through them, and then it'll give you like the colors associated with that. Again, I'm just trying to be helpful, so if it's helpful, snap a pic. If not, no stress. And then Behance is great for inspiration. See other people's portfolios, see some UI, UX, and just get some design inspiration. The 6th one is design for users. So sometimes you'll get obsessed with design in terms of making it beautiful, but for me, again, just coming from an entrepreneur perspective, it's website has to have an amazing user experience, right? If most of your clients are landing on I don't know, checking out direct mail, like you gotta have an awesome print game. So like really like whatever it is, the point is figure out where you're targeting your customers or where your customers are, and design around that instead of just being very generic and spending the same amount of time on a business card as you are on a website. Here are just some shots of before and after. This one's just a quick funny story that I want to share in terms of how design, how sometimes you have to be creative with design. So over here, this one, it's kind of embarrassing, but the drag me was a way that if you don't want to use the Bluetooth scale, you can drag it up and down, and the design is really ugly. But we had someone help us with Google AdWords, and they ended up really pissing off a competitor because the competitor's slogan was bar inventory in 15 minutes. And I didn't realize this, but the guy we hired, he put bar inventory in 10 minutes, and it was popping up on top of theirs. And after a while, it was kind of funny, it was good, we were getting leads. And then we got a letter from their lawyers, and I didn't know, but they had a patent to kind of slide something across a bottle, device, etc. And so, get lawyers involved, figure out what to do. And at first, the advice we got was that we could fight it because we just have to change one little thing and we'll be fine. But what we realized is, you know what? Most of our users don't really care about the slider that much. Most of them prefer the Bluetooth scale for precision, especially bottles that you can't see through, like Hendrix Gin. And what if we could convert that slider to something more, to something better? So it forced us to think outside of the box because we didn't want to spend legal fees. And we ended up coming up with, this is not the latest design, it's nicer than this, but the idea was the point system. So if you look at the bottom, point 1, point 2, point 3. And what's interesting about that was most people in the industry, that's how they currently do it. So when they do it on Excel, I showed you that picture, they look at a bottle, let's say this guy here, and they'll say, all right, this is about a 0.2 or 0.1, right? So in the end, it was a great move because it was actually resonated more with our users. There was less mistakes in terms of the dragging, and we didn't have to spend any legal fees. Number 7, and the final point, is who cares, right? Like, hopefully your customers. And the point I want to make there is that everything you should do should be for your customers. And sometimes you lose sight of that, and I get that. Things are, tech, especially I love tech, so get involved with cool things and cool features and cool, and wow. Get to the customer as fast as you can and listen to your customer as fast as you can, because that'll help navigate, the design of your product, everything you do around the product, including the experience. And this is just one little example, but like, this was a customer, one of the first customers we got, because of that gift basket in Toronto, and we got so much feedback from them, and we just kept improving the product, right? And listening to our customers, improving. And then fast forward, one day we got in the Globe and Mail, and like, who should, they asked us for some references, so we're like, you know what, Thompson's a big Toronto spot, and we got an awesome write-up in the Globe and Mail. And the point of this is that if you have happy customers, a lot of positive side effects come out of that, including good press. But I think at the core, sometimes we lose sight of that. So I would say that just, my advice to you guys, don't lose sight of that. And I think that's a wrap, yeah.
All right. So we're going to see Angelo in action selling whisk at the bar tonight at Chilton Massey. He's not his customer. The guy's name, I've researched it, his name is Ali. He's the bar manager, and Justin is the entire beverage manager. So they got an email from me, and we're going to see at the end of the night this guy closes.
Now you can write his pitch.
That's right. All right. Good job. So Kelsey.
Yeah, we just need like 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, 1 or 2 minutes for Kelsey to load up if you need a bathroom or whatever. There's still a little bit of food here and drinks, but we will start right away, so don't go far. And then after Europa, should be here.
Yeah, Europa.
She said she's coming out of the elevator.
Is she?
That was 10 minutes.
I know Europa.
I know.
She's not here.
Well, there's a port, yeah, but we need to find a port.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can change it later, right? So,
Yeah.
oh, yes.
What idea does it give you?
This is the new manager. You're the new manager.
Is he?
Yeah, okay, I'll look it up. And also we video, that's the video that we do. That's the box, but yeah, we can still people start tuning in. And your backdrop is shorty, and then your backdrop, everyone's going to be just seeing every character. So for a little bit of adjustment of whatever that is, like maybe your IT one is around, they want to ask for commission or thoughts on it, but
Yeah, because we're seeing all our internet connections very, very slow, because we do love.
yeah.
They can get nothing, but
Yeah, did you buy it?
We do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
They shouldn't be right, but we do have a potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
You don't need
yeah.
maybe. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, keynote's good, yeah.
Yeah, you were, I was gonna chat with,
So we should be good. Let's just do the test.
she's speaking at the, she's speaking next week at Global, start on the day and at Global, Toronto Global, like, yeah. I was gonna write, can I? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna try to get the words.
I don't need lots of time. Okay, guys, we're going healthy up.
That's a problem.
Yeah. That's why I don't really deal with it. Nobody will buy you a package. Unless they be doing like an argument based
Yeah, I can see what how we can.
We solved them.
We started Friday evening, and by Sunday evening he was in a relationship a lot. I'm like, I see too much of you. But it's more like you have the other thing. Okay, I'll just accept the problem. Now it's like, no, we have to work on stuff. Yeah, it's just very, very over. Yeah, that's my niece's boyfriend also you never know. Now, I tried, so I looked at the calendar whenever it came out. You know, I actually clicked on the number of LinkedIn profiles and I found many of them not relevant. So then the only one that's relevant is Ryan. So I scheduled time with Ryan. I mean, I would have liked to sit down the sales thing with Ryan.
Everybody have a pen and paper. Ready?
Let's go, guys.
Do you all have a pen and paper? Yes? If you do not, can you get a piece of paper from a notebook from a friend of yours around, and there's some pens back here. You're not going to need them just yet, but you will in a few minutes. We're not doing a big exercise, but it's important that it's pen
There's
and
lots of
paper.
pen, there's lots of law firms.
Yeah, they love writing things.
You mind passing a pen, would you? Great, thanks so much.
No, it's the water. I didn't want to make sure. A clean and making smell.
Ten years ago, I was an intern at L'Oreal, and I remember getting screamed at by my boss for not carrying a notebook with me absolutely everywhere. There were 18 interns, and it was pretty high stakes, and let me tell you, if you left your desk without a notebook and pen, you were in trouble. Because you never know where ideas strike. So if that's one thing I could say to you guys, when you've got these amazing mentors that come and teach you, bring a pen and paper, because it fires things off in your brain that you're not going to get taking notes on your cell phone or your laptop. Okay, are we ready? Everybody's got their paper. First of all, sweet nod in branding to this law firm who has their own branded soda water. It's a personal dream of mine. I'm Kelsey Cole. If you want to tweet at me, you can
Please
find
tweet
me.
at her.
Yes, you can tweet at me. We're going to tweet at Kyle too. Do you guys know where Kyle is right now? He's on a business trip to South Korea. We're going to make sure he's working, so if we could all tweet Kyle lots. We're also going to use Kyle in this presentation as a great example of a before and after in branding, because I think it'll help you guys understand the exercise, and because you know him, it's extra funny, and we're going to pick up because he's not here. And Sunil will love that. So I am Kelsey. My co-founder Angelo graced you with his presence a couple weeks ago. He's the red side to this logo. He's more analytics and vision and big picture. He's like the weight to my hot air balloon, so you'll see kind of the other side of our business through me in the next 20 minutes, I hope. This is me. Here I am. Angelo photoshopped me. Thank you, Angelo. Like I told you before, I'm a venture marketer. That's a new branding term I'm throwing around. I don't know how it sits with you guys, but essentially we've been doing a lot of really cool deals with amazing startups, just like you, and some startups that are a little bit further along where we take a piece of the business versus actually taking our hourly rate, which is kind of sexy for everybody, and it's a lot better than being a brain hooker, which is kind of like having an advertising agency, so I like this model better. So that's me. We've had this business for about 5 years now. It really was born out of understanding the need for tech marketers and startup founders to have great marketing services, because I was very obsessed with Silicon Valley. I really wanted to move there. 5 years ago, I was working at Revlon in lipstick, and I was just like, couldn't understand why I wasn't changing the world. And so I was like, who's changing the world? All these guys in hoodies in Silicon Valley. How do you get into that network? Well, you volunteer, of course. Even the more money someone has, the more hours you have to put in volunteering. So if you think a VC should hand you money, it's actually the other way around. And I developed some really great relationships with venture capitalists down there, and just did a whole bunch of free work, and wound up launching the Extreme Tech Challenge, which is a competition with Sir Richard Branson and a guy named Bill Tide. He's the VC behind Zoom, the meeting software, Canva, which is really great for designing. He bought Bitcoin at like 7 cents or something, so he's a hell of a guy, and he brought me into that whole world, and made me realize that maybe I could actually make money serving founders like you guys. So I've been a founder since then and had a little bit of a ride. Got into the crypto blockchain space. That was wild. Raised $15 million US in a 6-week time period with Angelo and some other people. The tech guy is still running that business. So I advise a lot of startups. I actually even got a call last year to advise Brian Lewis and Macklemore startups. So I am in constant touch with that team, in addition to a whole bunch of amazing people in Toronto and at Techstars. Somebody once called me the leading female in crypto, Cointelegraph, but there's not very many of us, so it doesn't really mean anything.
It still does.
I used to run PR at Revlon. So this is just so you know there's some credibility behind what I'm going to say. And you can see some of the brands I've worked on, but more importantly, we're going to work on your brands tonight. That's what I'm way more excited about. So what to expect? Taking notes equals ROI for sure. You guys obviously will get a copy of this, but like I said, there's something that fires off in the brain when you put pen to paper that's really important in the creative process. This is your brand, it's your baby, and you shouldn't be afraid to either get in front of a whiteboard or get in front of a blank page. So we're going to talk about what a brand actually is, what makes a brand, what the difference is between a product and a brand, so you know how to differentiate. How does a founder fit with a brand? So a little bit about personal brand and the differentiation, and then sort of where they meet. Getting started, so identifying your company's brand. How many people have a brand already? You know your logo, your colors, absolutely everything. Yeah. How many people have it, but they're not sure if they love it? Yeah. Okay. And then who is has nothing so far? Sweet. Okay. Just curious. So this should be relevant to everyone based on the total number of hands that went up, I hope. So we're gonna have a little exercise. That's what the pen and paper is for, in addition to all the beautiful notes you're gonna take. We're gonna talk about extending and then managing your brand. So a little bit of PR, reputation management, culture, and how that extends your brand through your company and to your customer and the experiences you create. A few tips and timelines, so when you can really expect to see your brand winning. Hint, it's a long game. And then who is winning, who to look at. I'm not going to give you a ton of examples, I'm going to make you do your research, but there's one person in particular that I want you to dive into really deep and see how they've managed their brand over the last 10 years. And then how should you measure, so KPIs that you can use to decide if you've actually been successful in this branding exercise. And then throughout Founders Institute, how can you rate your brand and your personal brand today versus at the end of the program. So this is Kyle, guys, Kyle Collier. Everybody knows Kyle, yes? Yes. Yeah, so Kyle helps to run this program, Sunil. So this is Kyle before I got a hold of him. This is his Twitter. If you want to tweet pictures of this, you're welcome to. I encourage it. So Kyle is a fantastic founder and has all of the recipes for success, but looked like a total nerd online, which is, I would say, to be expected. He's a software engineer. He spends his time in free startup t-shirts and hoodies, and he just needed a little bit of help because he's like, I don't know why I can't raise money. I don't know why I'm not appealing to the VCs. And I was like, I don't know, I feel like I know why. Kyle, I have a few ideas. So we got together and we did one of those amazing venture marketing deals that I told you guys about, and we've been working very hard at Kyle's brand. So I'm going to show you what his logo was before, which hint, it was this, which was great for, when Kyle launched his company, it was actually called Freezy. So Phase is a long way from Freezy, but he spelled it F-R-E-Z-Y, and so everyone thought it was called Frezzy. So Kyle was one of those examples of how you start with a great idea and you're solving an amazing problem, which is turning crypto into cash. Huge, huge, huge problem, massive solution, but he had a super weird brand name, and then he had this is his branding, and this to me just it almost looks a little bit like 1980s software something. I don't believe that this guy can handle all the world's crypto transactions turned to gift cards. So that was the exercise we went through, and I'm poking fun a little bit at Kyle because we all love him so much. But we turned Kyle, and specific shout out to Angelo Dodaro, from that to this. Okay, so this is how Kyle before was seeing himself, guys, and we were like, no, this.
But is he a romantic and a gentleman?
Does it matter? Because that picture tells you everything you need to know. And yes, he is a romantic and a gentleman because he took his lovely lady on his Korean trip with him. So answer that question. But just so you see, Angelo, that was through Angelo's lens. So that's how Angelo saw Kyle. That's how we saw him. And that's how the VC saw him when he saw the deck and gave Kyle a ridiculous amount of money in a very short period of time because he, looked like this guy. This looks like a guy, side by side, right, that would sell a company, for a lot of money and make a VC very happy one day. So that's the dream that we were selling in this deck. There's another one, just again, Angelo, kudos to you.
His biceps aren't actually that big.
Yeah. There's so much magic, you can work.
I love that one.
It's a fantastic, Kyle has a whole photo shoot, so he's ready for any PR opportunity that pops up. He hasn't even seen all the pictures, and he actually used to be a model for Guess a long time ago. So anyway, you can tweet this. This was Phase, you remember seeing the logo before, so this is Phase after we got to him, and we did 2 different iterations. So you see this particular logo actually works on both dark and light, and there's a reason for that, and there's a story that is told in this logo, and I'm gonna start with a breakdown and kind of show you the mood board and how we got to where it is today. But you can see that's a massive improvement from what he was working with before. It didn't look like the story he was trying to tell. We needed something that could be both an icon by itself, so those 4 squares you see, and then a word mark by itself. We We also even put it next to Facebook's Calibra logo just to make sure that they look really sexy together, because you should always envision who is your best partner in the best case scenario, and would they want to work with me based on what my branding looks like, which I know sounds so absolutely shallow, but guys, this is the message here today. So understanding branding. That was my example to you that I hope you believe that I know what I'm talking about. And now let's get into the actual lesson at hand. What is branding? What is a brand? Does anyone know where the origin came from? Anybody? Anybody? Yes.
What? Is it like when they would stamp the horses?
Yes, cattle. And do you guys know what a maverick is? Maverick is someone who doesn't fit in with a brand. Like if you say someone's a maverick, they don't, you know, fly with the flock, because that was the rancher who refused to brand his cattle. So he was the guy who wouldn't put the stamp. But essentially, that's what branding was back in the day. It was a literal identification of whose cattle was what. So that became the mark everyone got to know you by. You can go back into history and see even bigger examples of branding, like family crests, and then even country flags, I think, are great examples of how countries have decided to establish themselves and their cultures to the world. Those are great examples of early branding. And I want to show you some of the world's best brands. And just, sorry, I need some water. Yell out to me what you think, like some words when you see these brands, like this one. Any words? Fun? Yeah? Happy.
Part 2.
Magic.
Mm-hmm. Yes? Do we have good connotations, good feelings? Mm-hmm.
Happy childhood.
Like a happy childhood? Yes. What about this one?
Just do it. Just do it.
What does it mean to you? How does that make you feel?
Sweatshops.
That makes you feel like sweatshops. Okay. So they had a brand image problem once upon a time. I feel like they recovered well from that, but it's debatable. Anybody else inspired? Do you feel like this was hard to design? I want to ask everybody. Do you feel like you could draw this swoosh?
No.
No? From scratch? Could you replicate the swoosh? Yeah? So that's something very interesting. Disney, one of the challenges with it is I find it very hard to replicate. I think a really, really great logo. You can draw it if you were like out on a graffiti wall and you wanted to leave it behind. The swoosh, I think, is a great example of that, but it's also very simple and intentional design. Yeah, you can say that maybe any one of us could design it, but that's not what makes it worth so much. It's the intrinsic value and it's the brand behind this little mark that actually makes that swoosh so unforgettable. This is a great example of kind of what we were talking about earlier in Angelo's presentation with iteration. So Apple, as we all know, fantastic brand. But it wasn't always so crystal clear. Now, everybody knows, obviously, the story of Newton and gravity, and I don't know if you know, that's what was behind this Apple logo initially. But it's really, really hard to see what's going on in that picture. And you can imagine in 1976, there was so much bright color. Marketing was really picking up. This was very old school looking. It wasn't really giving them that technological advancement that a software or hardware company should show. So you see, they finally figured that out at around 2, and they stuck with that one for a really, really long time, and we all remember how colorful the Apple brand was. But then all of a sudden, they went into this, like, I want to call it the millennium mode, where everything, do you guys remember right before 2000 hit, and everything was like blue WD and like silver, and they sort of switched the brand to fit that, and continued along with their evolution, and then they went back to something really, really, really simple, but always through the years you can recognize that not only is it the word mark, but it actually is physically an Apple. So it's a phenomenal brand in many, many aspects. Words, again, for this brand, anybody? Words that you can think of? I promise there's relevance to this exercise, just yell some words. Yeah?
Premium.
New, premium.
Simple.
Simple. Good. What about these? These are products, right? Are these products different? Honestly, do you have any scientists in the room? Do you have scientists here? How different are they? The lawyers would probably argue there's a patent for each formula, right? And that the brands are completely different, this we know, but remember the Pepsi taste test, and people were like always mixing it up because nobody can actually tell the difference, and you really don't care when you go to the bar if they've got Pepsi or Coke on tap. You just want your brown soda with sugar. And what these two companies have done is created the most powerful branded empire, like, I think that is ever imaginable, because, okay, Apple, fine, yeah, you need a damn good brand, you're selling very expensive stuff, but come on guys, like, sugar water. And this is what we pay big bucks for. And this works. And the reason that this works is because they have two very different identities. What's the difference between Pepsi and Coke, really? Yes, classic and new, right? So Coke, I think they tried to be new once. There was a bit of a play on that in Stranger Things, if anyone saw the latest season. They had new Coke, they tried to be Pepsi, it didn't work for their brand. It's like one of the biggest branding F-ups ever. But Coca-Cola works because it's classic, it's nostalgic. They use that messaging, they use happiness, they use these same colors. Pepsi, they got really into those big sponsorships. They were always encouraging us to think young, to try and, you know, be fun, be relevant, be hip, and you see the differentiation in the two. And so it's very clear for the people marketing these brands, they know exactly why Pepsi and Coke are so different, and they would debate it until the cows come home. Whereas any Joe Blow on the schmo probably wouldn't know if we did a taste test, let's be real. Again, lipstick. So I know this world very well. I came from this world, Revlon, L'Oreal, it's all the same, you guys, it really is. I mean, I know there's some factories of mass cosmetic companies that are also making Chanel lipsticks, you know, right next to ones that you buy at the drugstore for a fraction of the price, but they're selling you an experience. And that's why branding makes such a huge difference in the beauty and cosmetics world. Because the effect, the payoff, the red lipstick, how many times can you tell that same story? You tell it over and over and over again to the tune of billions of dollars every single year. This is branding. Okay, so creating an identity, how do we actually go about having the effect that these companies have on us when we see them? So this is where our exercise is gonna come in, and this is gonna be kind of strange for you guys, but I want you just to go by gut. So I want you to write down 5 words that you feel represent your brand. And then I'm going to tell you the second set of 5 words in a minute, but I want you to go by the gut. And you can only pick 5. Got your words? Okay, now you're going to write 5 words to describe your personal brand. How you see yourself. They can be the same words, they can match each other. I'm interested to see if that happens. Next step, you're going to write down 1 color that represents your brand. 1 color next to those 5 words, just the first one that comes, whatever comes to your gut. And then you're going to repeat that for yourself, 1 color. Now you're going to turn over that piece of paper and you're going to look to the person next to you and you're going to write down 5 words about that person's brand. I hope you've been paying attention to pitches. If not, then make something up. And you're going to write down 5 words about that person and how you see their brand. So can you guys, you're not going to talk to each other, but I just want you to pair up. And if you're in like sections of 3, like, I don't know, be creative, you're entrepreneurs. So you're going to write 5 words about that person's brand, 1 color. 5 words about that person and 1 color. And you're not going to tell me why right now. You're just going to think about it. Okay, so why are we doing this? Well, we're trying to set a bit of a mood, right? Color tells a story. There's a reason why I had a completely different deck before I left my house today, and I redid it on the way down because I didn't feel like it reflected how colorful I feel at this point in my life. And so I redid everything just so you guys could better understand that I am somewhere on this color spectrum between red and pink, which is kind of ferocious and kind of romantic and somewhere in between. There's a lot of words I use to describe myself, but I've never had to use Tinder, thanks Angelo, so I don't know 5 off the top of my head. And this isn't for your Tinder profile, but it totally could be. But colors, what they often do is set, not often do, they always do, is they set a mood and a tone before anybody speaks. And we heard Angelo talk a little bit of this, Angelo talk about this before. Just so you guys know, there's this Angelo that presented today, and then there's another Angelo over here, and that's the Angelo that's like the other half of me. So if you're confused, Angelo Esposito, I apologize. We have not been dating for 8 years. So this color exercise is it's very intrinsic. It gives you mood, and there's also an aura about color. So it can communicate in a whole slew of ways with a root color, and then you can play with different auras of how they best explain your brand. You guys are probably like, okay, well, why did we write this down? Because I think it's really important that you understand both what your brand is, the brand that you're trying to create for both your company, and then the brand that you're trying to create personally. And a color is where we start with a mood. So I'm going to show you back to Kyle's again. So Kyle had this awesome like blue sort of aura about him, which I felt like very, trustworthy. He has this sort of like wisdom, but he also has this sparkle in his eye that kind of, for me, represented turquoise, curiosity, innovation. And those were things that needed to be representative in his brand as well, which is why turquoise and then that really strong dark blue were the 2 colors that were rooted. And we started by creating a mood board. So it really, again, started with those colors, because if you don't start with color, then you don't exactly know what to search. And I recommend spending a ton of time on Pinterest, on Instagram, using tools like this, and just going with your gut and going with your heart. And it all sounds very airy-fairy, and it absolutely is, but I'm telling you, there must be some sort of science behind this art. And you'll see, it starts to give you a picture when you actually create a mood board. There's a tool called Mood Board, I don't know, moodboard.com or something like that if you Google it, and you can just take screen grabs or pictures that you've saved on your desktop and shove it in this document, and it'll create this beautiful mood board for you of everything that's been inspiring you. But sometimes what you'll do is you'll start on one path, and then you'll kind of veer in a different direction. And I think Faze was a great example, because we started with the idea of liquidity, right? He was helping solve an issue of liquidity, so we started with liquid, which you can see is that image in the bottom left. But then we started to play with the idea of phase as it relates to physics. So you see sort of sound waves and this movement and flow of energy. And then we got into the idea of a portal, which is what you see in the top left-hand corner. And a portal is, if you're into sort of spirituality or science fiction, is a portal into a new world, a new dimension, and that's really what Kyle's created with his technology. It is so difficult to get cryptocurrency from your Bitcoin wallet to an actual spendable experience, and so we felt like Kyle had created a portal to the future in a way. And so we kind of played with this. We did a little more on the sound wave. When you're creating a logo, whatever design you're working with, we'll start with black and white. They'll remove the color completely to try and get the shapes right, and then they'll start to bring the color back in. I saw over 100 different color combinations of each of these logos, and a lot of different logos before that. And you'll note, even these ones themselves are not like the logo that you see today. But on the right-hand side, you see this world of a portal we've tried to create, and this idea of fading from digital to real world and vice versa. We also wanted to think about it in terms of sexy animation. So how do we play with colors or movement? If we were to have gone with the logo on the left-hand side, those lines would have moved as somebody's phasing out their cryptocurrency instead of just sending it to their bank account. So it's kind of this fun play on shapes and colors. So you'll see that was sort of the final inspiration for it again before the logo is finalized. Culture. So how does this actually affect the culture in not just your company, which I know you're probably by yourself right now unless you have a co-founder, but you're creating a culture that you're going to want to present to potential partners, VCs, advisors, anybody in your network that you want to potentially have as a customer or a partner. You're creating this experience that you want them to feel. And something that I want you guys to think about, again, when we go back to culture and the idea of brands, is the brand and the culture idea that you have of each country around the world. How many people have visited a country or moved to a country that's nothing like what they thought it would be? Yes? Yeah? Was that a culture problem or a brand problem? Brand, right? Because of stereotypes, and some countries are very different than the way the rest of the world brands them. But it's really important that the country, when you go there, if they know who they are and they know what they're all about, then they can reframe your experience. For me, one of the countries that I think is a great example of that is Austria. I think of, I always think of like German people in general as being like very, very intense and so rigorous and regulated and, strict and structured. And Austria is very romantic and it's beautiful and everyone sort of speaks much more softly. And I worked with the tourism department there. And the way they saw Austria was sort of like this beautiful painting that one would just walk into, almost the way we would think of going to Paris. It was somewhere they thought you would go to be inspired, which was very different than what I had in my mind. So I think that's a great example of how a really good culture, and you feel it when you're there, is something that you can work on both on the inside out and the outside in, from a branding perspective. Oh yes, you want to say something? Yes.
But in such a very unrealistic way that they actually have a hotline where people are going to shop when they land into Paris, and it's not oh my gosh. They literally have a hotline to help people that go into Paris and get into shop.
That is insane. And like literally, yes, the culture is so different than the way that they've been branded. And I remember as an exchange student, I was an exchange student in France in high school. If you guys have ever been like young and lived in another country and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? It was just so different than what everybody told me it would be. And I was always so upset when they thought that Canadians were this, igloo, like living in. This is before the days of the internet and well, not that we didn't have the internet, but we weren't really, we weren't on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, you guys get my point. Moving on. Community. How does culture and brand help build community? Well, a brand intrinsically creates community. People get very, very excited. That's how a brand actually grows. If you do not create community, you do not have a brand. Look at Techstars, look at Founder Institute and all the people that are here. There's a reason why there's FI all around the world and that people flock to it and come to it. There's a reason why it gets better and better every year because the community grows and people, Kyle and me meet through opportunities like this and then get the opportunity to work on something like Phase, which we never would have met without this community. And that's because the Founder Institute brand is very strong. So it attracted us to the same place. And a great brand, no matter what it is, if it's a country or a product that you're founding, creates a sense of community around it. Are there any examples of people that you guys can think of that have created communities that you're like, how is there a community around that? Anybody? I think like my most interesting of life is those like furry people who dress up, Those people who are like giant furries, and it's like a thing. Anyways, I just thought, wow, I didn't know there was a community for that. That's a whole big brand all on its own. I don't know why this planet is there. I don't know what that was about. Maybe the furries, sorry about that. Reputation. So people always ask about PR. Everybody wants to know how to get PR. How do we get PR? How do we get featured? How do we get in the media? How do we get covered? You get covered based on reputation, whether that's good or bad. And public relations is really the management of reputation. I'm almost done. Am I running low on time?
Just like maybe a few minutes.
Few minutes, okay.
Yeah.
I'm wrapping up. So Sunil has a reputation usually of like saying what's on his mind, but I just saw him walking back and forth, and so I thought I better ask. Reputation is extremely important, even when you're super, super tiny. Reputation is how people feel about you as a founder. It's how they feel about your company. It's how they feel about the experience. And you need to really focus on making reputation absolutely amazing before you even think about PR and public relations. And I want you to think about the opportunity that exists to both create an amazing reputation and also to create a really terrible one based on what you do in the early days. And the challenge is, it's really, really, really hard to change that reputation once you create it. There is a great example of someone who's done an awesome job of that. I'm going to go into who's winning in terms of branding altogether. We'll get to that after. But unfortunately, people do judge a book by its cover. And we also have this thing now called Amazon, where the book review pops up right away. And even though people, might not be reviewing you as a founder and saying nasty things about you, they can definitely go on and leave some quick feedback about your company. So, reputation. PR, like I said, starts with reputation management, and great brand wins PR on its own. It is not something that you should be investing in as an early startup. I wouldn't recommend it in the early days anyway, but you should be getting out there, hustling, managing your reputation, and then looking for those organic opportunities when you do really great things to get featured and covered, just like Whisk did. Play the long game. So in terms of timing, I put that in the beginning to make you guys think like, oh my god, is there like a timeline my brand's just gonna pop off? No, absolutely not. Sometimes it's really fast, sometimes it's really slow. Some brands do well at the long game and some brands don't. Look at Revlon right now for a brand that's not doing well with the long game. Look at Glossier for a brand that has done a phenomenal job in the short term. But always play the long game with your brand and with your own personal brand. It's not something that you can just change overnight and become a different person unless I guess you could, that would take a little while. But you can go and through evolutions as a person and as a brand in the long game. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm tripping out. You can tell it's the end. Find your unfair advantage. Well, that's sort of part of the long game as well. Burn the history book. What happened before doesn't matter. We're wrapping this up. Who's winning? This is the person I was going to talk about. You guys will probably roll your eyes, but Taylor Swift, huge reputation problem in the last few years after the big scandal. Did a great job of rebuilding back up. So this image is actually from her campaign about 5 years ago. If you see her latest marketing, it looks just like this. She's gone back to a brand that served her well. She played with a different brand in between because she had to react to the reality of what had happened to her public image. And then she was able to kind of do an Apple and loop back to something that was safe, built community, and quite frankly, produced her more record sales. So if you want a case on branding, reputation management, what to do and what not to do, examine Taylor Swift. Even though you're all entrepreneurs, I highly encourage that woman's worth a lot of money. KPIs, how are you successful? Guys, you'll know. You'll know when you know because people will start to comment. It's not one thing where you can just say, oh, my brand is amazing, I've really scored on this one. It's going to be constant iteration, but look for those same metrics of success that you would see in other elements of your business. Listen to what Jess and Angelo had to say tonight. Constantly iterate, look for feedback, and use that as your constant KPI. It's always changing, you can always be getting better. A brand should never, ever, ever rest on its laurels, and neither should the founders. So that's it, that's all. Thank you very much.
Amazing. So why don't we do this? Europa's here. We'll do her talk, and then we'll do a Q&A with all 4 chairs.
Sweet.
And then we'll go till 9 o'clock, and we'll go down to Choto Mate. So
cool.
This is.
Mine will be short and sweet. So don't.
No worries. So
sweet is subjective.
Sweet is subjective.
We've got it loaded up? Okay. So while he's loading it, Europa, you can introduce yourself. Europa Stein, Techstars alumni from our Berlin program.
Yes.
What was that called? That program was
Metro.
Metro.
Metro is a hospitality program, Techstars hospitality program. My company.
Microphone. Yeah.
Yeah. I can project. Okay.
is called Hire. It's an online platform that connects event staff, so like servers, bartenders, chefs, anyone in hospitality that's temp labor, with hospitality venues such as hotels, catering companies, and event venues like conference centers. We connect them via our online platform. They'll, the hospitality venues create shifts, and the temporary staff pick up the shifts when they're available, and then they'll work through the platform and get paid through the platform. So once my presentation's ready, I'll talk about my views on design, which might be very different. And I'm not a designer by any means, so that's okay. But design on a shoestring budget, as well as what I believe is most important for a business, and how design plays a role in that. But thank you.
Short.
Very short. So, any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, we spoke before. Yes, we have. I recognize you. Yeah. How are you doing? Okay. Yes.
How much is your team?
Right now, it's, well, as of today, it's 8.
Oh,
So
cool.
today we add another person, and hopefully next week 9. So, oh, my laptop is coming up. Perfect. Thank you
Good job, Jack.
so much. This is much easier because the reason we had to connect to my laptop and not through the HDMI was because I actually want to show you a few different things that I kind of dug up today, which I thought was, I mean, I'll find it funny, so that's most important, right? Okay, so in my opinion, when it comes to startups, especially in the beginning of a startup, the most important thing is to find product market fit and market validation. And how does design, and more so design, I put branding in here because that's kind of the name of the talk, but more so how does design play a role in that? And it is my belief that your design goals should depend solely on your company goals and the stage you are at. So, in my opinion, again, I'll always preface in my opinion. Okay, so in my opinion, if you are just starting out and you're looking for market validation, don't invest so much in design, because at the end of the day, first you need to figure out if it even is a good idea, if it'll work, if you'll get a customer. Why spend all that money before you can really validate that? So I started off by asking myself, what are your goals for your company? Number 1 should be market validation, and there are 3 things to that. And then after market validation, then you scale. And there's, in my opinion, a different design goal for each part of market validation and then scaling. For market validation, you should first look at the proof of concept and have a design for that. Your prototype, and that's a different design altogether, and your MVP. And then when you have all of that solidified, then double down on your brand and design and scale. So, proof of concept. Your design goal should be linked to, to get as much raw feedback on your idea as possible. So make sure to kind of really sketch something out, have a really rough idea of what it could look like or a brand could be, and then go out to the public, talk to as many people as possible with your napkin design, and honestly get as many no's as you can. Like, never ask, oh, what do you like about this? Those kinds of questions that lead to yeses won't really help you in the long run. And you should actually be asking questions where people will say, well, I won't use this because of this, this, and this, but that's actually going to help you the most. And then you can build, you should ask the question, what can you build that will tell you what you need to know? So have a design there, a concept that will tell you from your customers or potential customers' reactions what you need to know to go out and then build the second stage, which is a prototype. And make sure that this, again, is very, very, very simplistic. So I will show my example, and it's very, very raw, And as you can see, very minimal design effort. Let's see what's, oh. Where did it go?
Try your web browser and then last tab. I think that's for the higher web.
It's,
I go to Chrome.
Yeah. It's a web page.
no, it's, oh, it's Pro. Oh, okay. Ah, okay, there it is, okay. So it just had to be. So, okay, it was just because there's another PowerPoint. When I initially started Hire, it was called Interactive Staffing, and it wasn't called Hire. And then it was called eStaff Match, and then it was called Hire. So the first version, Interactive Staffing, I went to my customers, and I really wanted proof of concept. So I designed a PowerPoint presentation that I spent a lot of time on, no money, a lot of time, and this was like my work of art at the time. And it would really, I would really go to customers and say, okay, click as many buttons as you want on this, because I would make all of the pages of the PowerPoint link together, and tell me, like, just talk out your experience, like speak about your experience while you're going through this whole thing. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's actually pretty long, but I will go through a little bit of what I thought this platform could look like if I were to build it. And as you can see, the design is pretty shit. But so right now, let's actually make this interactive, as the name says, and please tell me what you want to see.
Client login.
Okay, so are you a new client or are you an existing client?
New.
You're a new client. Okay, so now you have to answer these questions. And do you want to know your potential savings calculator?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's see how much you can save. Well, by using us, you can actually save about like $10 to $20 per person per hour. That's so interesting.
All right.
Let me know what your reactions are. Okay, and then let's just say you're an old client. So you go here and, oh, that would be a staff member, sorry, you're an old client. You'd go here and you can create an event. So as much as you can see, the design is very, very rudimentary, but there's a lot of effort put into this, and the flow was what I was most interested in, and seeing if people were to actually get interested with what something could be, the idea of it, the proof of concept. So once they logged in and wanted to create an event, so that's what they do right now in our system. And by the way, this is like 4 years ago, this PowerPoint, but you can click and create an event, and you do this now on our platform. And then you can save and continue, and you can invite people. We even have this invite feature here. You can visit people's profiles and look at their feedback and so on and so on. And I did this for both the staff side and the organizer side, as you can see here. So if I go back enough, you can see the site map. And I started with the site map. So when I designed this potential platform, I thought, globally, what would the site map look like? What would the flow, the user flow look like? And then, this is not worth taking a picture of, but you can. It's just that, though. And then I kind of worked from there. So I tried to really create the web version, what it would look like, but get as much feedback before building anything, because that's a lot of money. And I've made that mistake with different products. So that was my first iteration of my proof of concept. I thankfully got enough feedback at the time to move forward in the decision-making process to continue, and I then decided to prototype, which is the second phase. And when you're prototyping a design, it's different than proof of concept. In my opinion, when you're prototyping, you're actually now getting, you're trying to get your customers to understand what it could really look like. So the look and feel of it is more important in this phase. For me, it was anyway. And so I tried to make the product, or the prototype, the wireframe, more realistic. So it really looked like a website, it really looked like a platform, and it was aesthetically pleasing. So going on like 99 Designs or some like freelancer sites to get some designs ready to then prototype would be the next phase, in my opinion, just to get a really real, honest feedback. And you should be targeting, your goal in this phase should be to answer the questions, to answer, this is how we build it, and this is how it would be used for your customers. So the design, again, is better, and in this phase, you show them your prototype and really synthesize what you should be building for your MVP, which different design strategy. But let me show you the prototype. I can bring it up here if I still have internet. Perfect. I don't have internet.
It's a guest. Click on guest, sun and sand.
It did that already. Twice. Okay. Anyway, okay, so hopefully my internet lasts, but this is the prototype. I don't know what you think, but for me this looked more like a website, and a lot of people actually thought it was a real website. Believe it or not, with the first design I showed you, people actually became customers from the first interactive staffing pitch that I did. People actually thought it was a website, and when I showed them this prototype, they were sure it was a website. Like this was probably a year, maybe 8 months before there was an actual working MVP, but people really thought that they were going to log in to this platform. And all I had to do was create, well, this one has 100 slides, but really you don't need that many. And you can use sites like InVision to really prototype or like wireframe the whole thing. InVision, I used so many wireframe sites, but I personally now always use InVision. I feel like it's pretty easy. I know there are others like Sketch and everything else I just don't know how to use. So essentially, you click the buttons like you would in a real website, and you fill it out. And that's why they really thought it was a real website, because I was just clicking and things were coming up, and it looked like it was a website. And so you'd go on, and I would click, and people would be like, oh wow, look, it's so easy. Sometimes I forgot where to click, but I would go on, and it's just really easy. And it kind of goes on and on, but you can see here that the design is much more aesthetically pleasing than my first one, and it's just really trying to get the users or potential users to really feel like there's a product and buy in at that phase, and really see if you can like solidify some of your first clients. So the next thing I want to show you. Yeah. So that was my example. And finally, finally the minimum viable product. So after you've wireframed and really synthesized the features that you need to build for your MVP, you now have a new design goal. And your new design goal should be to build this MVP, but really, in my opinion, don't focus too much on UI, because once you've synthesized what you really need to build and the key features that'll make your product, your customers happy when they're using it, that should be the only goal. And you can, once you've reached product market fit on this stage, then you focus on design. But here, the MVP, I wish I had an example, but I don't have one, was much like uglier, more bare bones than the previous wireframe I just showed you. And the only goal was just to get feedback, see if people are actually using it. Didn't want to spend a lot of money, a few $1,000s, a few months of work, but I really got the validation I needed in the first 2 steps, and I took a risk, but it wasn't as big as a risk as I thought, because I already kind of had customers from my first 2 experiments that I did. So I would say here, don't really worry too much on the design, worry more about product market fit, and if the user experience makes sense for them. And then, finally, once you have product market fit and your MVP is a hit, hopefully, iterate, but is a hit, then you need to scale. And at that point, I would invest more in design and really care about the brand, because that's what you're going forward with. That's where you know what you built is working, and people are actually happy with it, and now you can double down and really make sure that your brand and design reflect your culture, who you are as a brand, who you are as a company, as a person, and really move forward with it. So when you're in the scale phase, now we really care more about design. And I wish I had a few examples of what our logo went through, but I happily put that in the trash as soon as we as soon as we made the switch. And actually, Techstars helped us with that. Just it was an emotional time. It's hard. Even if the brand is so ugly, you're kind of still attached to it in a weird way because you've been with it for a while, and we just needed to get rid of it. And it was just like a breakup. I never want to see it again. And I would like to show you the website now. Hopefully it works. Hopefully you guys are that. Okay. So now it's a little. Hopefully it doesn't sign into MGs. Okay, yeah. So now it's a little cleaner than it was, and we even took out the circle. We had a circle around hire, and you can really like, it looks much more clean. Of course, we need to work on it, but this is like after, we've changed this landing page and our other landing page like many times, and the inside of the site many times. But we're in a phase right now where we care more about how we present ourselves to the world, because this is the first thing that they see. This is the first thing that really gets them to trust us. And when we're trying to scale, that's super important. So in this phase, I would say double down on your brand and make sure that everything that you're putting out to the world reflects what you're trying to represent. And yeah, so as I mentioned, design is an iterative process, and I believe you should design for your goals. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. So just stay up.
I just thank you.
And if the whole group can go up, Kelsey, Angelo, Jessica, and even the other Angelo, the other guy that we kept hearing about. If you want to, you can. I mean, you're here. We're actually all going to go downstairs for networking, which is amazing. So all 4 plus Angelos. You have 5 mentors plus Chevy's coming from Relay Ventures, Sajid, and so we got a lot. We had 6. Well, 5 mentors, 6. I don't know. I thought I had 6 in mind earlier, but lots of one-on-one downstairs. So we'll get through some questions. So Q&A. Sarah. Yeah.
I have a quick question for Ekirova. When you started with that ugly version for proof of concept, you start to load customer onto that platform. Did they? I'm just curious to find out. Did they stay with you as you progress through the prettier versions?
100%. Yeah, 100%. We use their feedback all the time in our iterative process. They were there throughout the whole journey and really helped us along with what features we should develop and how it should look. And we like to be very close to the customers. That customer is the Brook Street Hotel. So they're in Ottawa. They're a 5-star, 4.5-star hotel in Ottawa, and we're very happy to still be working with them today. One of our top customers. Thank you.
I'm not sure who would answer it, but maybe to again. But does taking a bootstrap route versus looking for VC capital put different pressures on early design spending?
This is a perfect question. Angela got VC money and I didn't.
She's a lot happier, as you can tell, right? So there's her answer. No, short answer, it really depends. Like I feel like a lot of people celebrate, raising money. The truth is like, who cares? Like who cares? Like in the early days, like obviously like in certain industries you need money, right? If you're doing something that's very scientific and you pass and like you need money day one, sure. But for most companies, I feel like the longer you can bootstrap, the better. And if I give one piece of advice, is just like really reflect on what you want, because there's a lot of pressure today to raise money and make the next $1 billion company. Most people here, including myself, won't, but it's okay. I'm trying to make a $200 million company, and I think that's realistic for me. Maybe not, but maybe. But the point I want to make is, you got to figure out what you want out of life, and then I would just reverse engineer that. So if you see a path where, making a good salary, loving what you do every day, having a solid team makes sense, great. If you see a path where you won't be happy unless you're the next Slack, then you definitely need that VC money.
And does looking for VC money put more pressure on you to have a more slicker or more sophisticated design early on?
I'll just say one thing. When it comes to raising money, again, it depends on what industry, but generally, from my experience, I've realized that the most important thing is just like having product market fit, actually having sales. So for me, the craziest thing was when I was in Dexter, is like, again, I was just a hustler. I was not a tech guy. I just hustled, sell, try to build things. but I wanted something more. So I went to Techstars, and one of the first things I learned was that most of the companies didn't even have any sales. And I took that for granted, because I was like, what do you mean? This is what you gotta do, you gotta make money, how are you gonna survive? But that was the best conversations I had with the VCs, because then when I would be with VCs, they'd be like, okay, but how big a problem is this really? Like, talk to them. Well, I'm like, well, look, right now we got, 60 restaurants paying us $200 a month. Oh, you have paying customers, 200. The POS is 100, and they're paying you 200. So for me, the best way to kind of like drop the mic is just get paying customers, because no one could debate that. So really get paying customers, everything else will come. Like, I can give you the shittiest idea right now, the shittiest logo, the shittiest thing, but if I told you, yeah, we're generating $7 million a year, I got all your attention. You're like, fuck, okay, what are these guys doing, right? And direct.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
I would, this one's I would marketing is the last thing anybody should be spending any money on, and VCs do not want to see you spending money on marketing. They really don't. There are so many great tools, and there are things like Fiverr and Canva, if you haven't used Canva, they do not want to see that. That's literally why we have a new model to our company that's venture marketing, because people shouldn't spend money on marketing, so they should just give me a piece of their company instead. But it's true that VCs do not want to see you wasting money on a pretty logo. Like, you can't afford to hire an agency that would, knock it out of the park for you. A friend of mine last week said he was gonna go out and raise $500,000 and spend $300,000 on a branding agency in New York, and I was like, good luck, buddy. It's not crypto season anymore. Just don't.
Give it to the branding agency now.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. I do. Yeah, exactly. So I do think that there are some really great resources, and I think we've highlighted a bunch of them tonight that where you can go to get branding done for a reasonable price. I think that there is a point when you do need a branding agency, yes, that's correct, or an agency to do the development work, but I would say, I think that Europa, seeing your presentation and seeing how you started with that MVP and how you onboarded people is an awesome start. And even from an agency perspective, if someone came to me with that amount of work already completed, not only would it technically cost them less money because we actually could understand what they were talking about, but it would also have brought on your initial customers, and it wasn't anything that really needed to be 100% set home. But I think to your question that you asked is, would it put more pressure on you if you knew that you were presenting it to VCs as opposed to not? I think that, I guess you'd have to put that pressure on yourself, because even if you are bootstrapping versus using VC money, I think that it's awesome that you guys have two different stories to share, but I think that you can see that it's equally as important. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Okay. I was wondering, when it comes to deciding on a business name, is it more important, early stage, to think about how the name sounds or how it looks? Or is it equally important?
Where's your customer? Are you getting them online, or are you getting them from talking to people in person? What's the product?
Ideally you'd be getting them on, but ideally I'd be getting them online.
Ideally getting them online, so how it looks.
Okay.
For sure. Do you guys agree with that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, basically, is it more important how a business name sounds or how it looks?
Business name.
Company name.
I'll do short answer. I'll give you my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would say look.
The branding.
Yeah.
For tech, yeah.
I would say it doesn't matter what your name is. It doesn't. No, it really doesn't matter.
I disagree. Highly.
You know what? You're gonna change it so many times, right? She changed it 3 times. Again, take this with a grain of salt. I'm giving it you just for my entrepreneur scope, right? So this is just my scope. So again, always take advice with a grain of salt. Don't come up with a really shitty name and be like, oh, that guy Angelo said it doesn't matter. But all I would say is it's probably gonna change. So put some effort into it. In the early days, we had 20 different names. We tested it. We did little, focus groups. So still put some effort. There's the phone test. When someone says, "What's your email again?" and you say it, is it easy to spell? There's little tricks like that. There's not really any .coms left, so that doesn't matter. But in general, I would say like what's most important is you find a name that you like, and then it'll just evolve naturally. Like you saw Shopify with us before, you saw Slack when it was a game, I don't remember the name, whatever it was, right? Like so things will evolve. Put some effort into it, but get to the customer as fast as you can.
Yeah, I think to that point too, that it is important that you have connection with the name that you do decide on. That will show. But yes.
Okay, we spoke, especially Jessica spoke about selling the brand. I saw some example, like you had the gift basket sent so like selling an experience or selling a brand. What other examples have you seen of good ones? Because selling the brand is different than selling the product. And I guess it's like, there's a bit of a differentiation there, but what have you seen successful before in like selling the brand, or selling the experience of your brand, the culture of your company, whatever it may be?
Like to your customers?
To your customers, yeah.
For us, our brand is represented by our thousands of contractors that work with us, because we send temp labor to hotels. So each person that is going to a hotel is representing our brand, and we have to make sure that they look super professional, hair tied back, very clean cut in terms of what they wear, and their attitude, and is always, they're always extremely happy, polite, and they take a lot of initiative. So that's our brand and our people that always go to our clients, for example. That's excelling our brand, and we're known in like Ottawa, for example, which was our first city. We had someone come to us yesterday, and they work for the Turkish embassy came to us yesterday and said, hey, I saw your people work at the Australian embassy, and I was highly impressed, and I said that the next time I have an event, I'm going to use the service. So I'm really, really excited to use you guys. Can I make an account? And that's kind of how we expand from there. But I would say
yeah, I think that there's not too much of a difference in between like your brand and your product should be very tied together, similar to, and I think that you can also see the different marketing types. So I thought that your idea of sending, like trying to onboard the early adopters through actually marketing directly to them, giving them the product, because you recognize that the amount of money that would come in from onboarding them would be through the additional customers. So it's, again, understanding who your customer is that you're trying to get and what that return is before you decide. But I would say they're both very closely tied.
My question is for Kingsley. I see that MBM offering a lot of service for the branding and marketing, and I saw as well that you can help for pitch, but what kind of help that are you providing? Like, what is the full service that we can have if we deal with you?
That's a good question. I mean, so a lot of founders don't actually know everything they need. They know that they need help. And so it's kind of like if you're like, I want to buy a house. And I'm like, that's cool. So where do you want to buy the house? How big's the house? What's your budget for that? You know, all those sorts of things. So usually it starts with sort of a consultation and figuring out, is it like a full, are we building a house from the ground up? Is there like a house already there that we're just renovating? It changes, and then we scope it out based on those tasks, and we very intensely track how long things take us, so we know approximately how long it should be for, you know, a logo design process or whatever that is. But for instance, Kyle didn't come to me because I physically designed that logo. I work with a designer who I give a brief, and I go through a huge process. And so not everybody would be at that stage, and that's why when you guys wrote down those 5 words are what you start with when you're giving a designer a brief. And what I was going to tell you is you should bounce them off of each other at cocktail ideas, because before you give those 5 words to anybody, you should feel like other people are picking up on those words too. So we help you figure out what those words are, and then absolutely everything that comes after, from, you know, website to speaking engagements to everything. But we only work with very small number of people in a really, really deep way, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
Yes.
question is around domain name. So company name, how similar and how close should be the company name and domain name? I noticed that your domain name is hirestaff.com, but your company name is Hire, which is a great company name. Do you find that it's extremely important to find the same domain name as your company name, or it's irrelevant?
I don't think it really matters these days. I think that like we have quite a few domains. Like Hire Staff is the .com, which we use when we write emails. It's always in the signature, but we're also hire.ca, hire.io, like all those other ones. We just use hirestaff.com because hire.com is someone is sitting on it for 20 years, and they're not going to give it to anyone. I've even offered them tons of money. No one is getting that domain. So I personally, I used to really care about that, and then Techstars beat it out of me.
So how do you promote traffic to your company, to your website, if you're using, there's a disconnect between your company and the domain name?
Well, no one's typing in a domain. People are typing in Google, right? And when you type Hire in Google, we come up. So it's
organic.
Yeah,
You want
exactly.
SEO, and there's all kinds of ways that you can up your ranking. And her one thing that makes yours so good is that it's hire staff, so it's like an action, it's taking an action. So I would look at her website and be like, that is brilliant, because you've just told people what to do by giving them the name of your website.
Thank you. Never thought of that.
So by extension to what you just said, is there any particular reason why you stuck with the .com for much of the activity and the other ones are kind of in the background?
The other ones, all direct to the .com.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why you chose the .com and not hire.ca, whichever, right?
It's the first one we bought.
Okay.
And then when we rebranded from our name eStaff Match, which was a horrible name because everyone thought it was a dating site. But I thought it was so clever because E is for events, staff, and then you're matching them. Anyway, when we rebranded as hirestaff.com, and then we bought the other domains. So I didn't want to do the whole process again, and we just used Hire, and people know us in, we're a local marketplace, so in the marketplaces, in the cities that we're in, people just know us, so it's not a huge deal to just go by hirestaff.com, and then if they type hire.ca, they'll get to the same domain anyway.
And if I may, for everybody on the panel, you know the challenge with picking up a domain name, right? Parking and all that stuff. How have you navigated that? Any tips or quick ideas on how to manage that? Because you might come up with a great name, you like it, it's taken, that one is taken, and then only the CA is available, only the IO is available. Yeah.
My tip is to not drink and buy domain names. That's my hot tip, and Angela will tell you that. Yeah, just don't do that ever.
Or you might think of some clever ones, so maybe maybe do it.
If I showed you the domain names, you'd say no.
Just make sure auto renewal isn't turned on.
Yeah.
I actually have 100 domains, and auto renewal is always turned on.
Me too. I'm a hoarder. I have 100 domains as well.
Yeah. When I'm depressed, I buy them. When I'm happy, I buy them.
Noteuploads.com. If anyone needs that one, I got noteuploads.com. No one?
$20.
All right. No, but to answer your question, I mean, obviously there's tools to just accelerate the time, like a domainchecker.com, whatever it is, so you can just type it, see the Facebook, this, that, whatever, it shows you everything at once. But in terms of the short answer, like, the .coms aren't available. We used to be whisksolutions.com, because whisk was like detergent, and now we're just whisk.ai. And honestly, it depends, I guess, what industry you're in. We're B2B, mostly a mobile app and a web app. No one's going on our website, really. Like, people are landing there, like, from Facebook, whatever, so it's more about, like, the content on your website and what people are typing. So people are typing, in our case, bar inventory app. In your case, maybe vegan food delivery. Like, that's more important than just owning vegan food. I mean, veganfood.com would be pretty cool, but instead of just owning, you know, a keyword domain name. Google puts a lot more now. Before it was all domain, now there's a lot more weight on the actual content on your website, backlinking, all kinds of, you know, different variables, really.
A question over there, yeah, back.
I'll sell it to you.
So what was that?
I asked him if he owned the domain veganfood.com.
Yes.
You do?
No, that was like, we'll talk
I'm
after. Okay.
How was the rebranding process in terms of like legal or corporate requirements? Did you find it to be daunting? Was it worth it at the end of the day? That kind of thing.
Well, I think it was worth it for us because the other brand was pretty ugly and the name stuff. But in terms of legally speaking, yeah, that was annoying. It wasn't super hard. We had to, you can have an operating name and you can have a legal name. So we never changed our legal name. Our legal name is Lee Staff Match Inc. and it's pretty unique and no one has it. So that's our umbrella company, or our I guess our legal name, our umbrella company, our legal name, and then our operating name is Hire. But sometimes, so last week, someone, because our operating name is just Hire, not Hire Inc. It's just Hire. And then our legal name is Lee Staff Match Inc. So sometimes customers will like send us checks if it's like a really big event. And last week someone sent us a check with Hire Inc. and the bank just doesn't cash that. So that's pretty annoying. So I mean, that's just like one little thing. But other than that, legally it's not a big deal. We always have to submit every form with Staff Match Inc. brackets, Hire, and then just explain to people when we're like payment processing to just put either Hire or Staff Match Inc. And then if someone is asking like why our company's not coming up in the business directory, we'll just explain that. But that's few and far between. It's not really common. And it's not a reason not to change your brand.
Right.
Don't change your brand if you don't have to, or if you don't think it'll make a huge impact though, because I think that it takes a long time. Like it took us a good 2 months of focusing on that, where we could have done something else, but for us it was really important. It was very tough. Like we'd have brainstorming sessions about names that lasted hours, and I'd have like all of these whys and how and what, and like it was very tough. I wouldn't want to do it again.
I think one more question, maybe two. Okay, go Jack.
Yeah. So in terms of the early, for B2B company, if you had to spend anything on marketing, or time, right? What would you recommend as the very early, the first step of marketing and getting branding out there? So what if you had to spend on one thing, like website or the video or a blog?
I think that you need a really good landing page, like just a solid landing page. There's a site called Unbounce. If you guys don't know Unbounce, you should know about it. It's incredible, and you can have, for a basic plan that you're looking around, I think like $99 a month or something, but you can have up to 70 different variations live. And so you can split test them, but you can also build them out and replicate them for different customers. And so, for Whisk, they may have like cocktail bars versus like steak houses, and maybe the landing page would be different and the SEO would be different. But that's a great place to invest your time, because it'll also make you think critically. If you're using the Unbounce templates, you're going to answer the questions that the template's giving you, because it literally is saying, put your tagline here. It's a phenomenal place to start. If you don't have a deck, if you have nothing else, just start with the landing page. And you should be able, between like Fiverr or somewhere like that, find somebody who can do some sort of logo for you. There are resources out there, like reasonable ones.
Good. Sarah?
Just a quick question. So our company, we haven't had a name for it yet, but we do know what the product is going to look like and what it is going to do for the customers. And we thought about the names, but these names are not sexy, not that pretty. So do you have any tips on coming up with the names?
Make it verb.
Hopefully the short names.
I think drinks. Let's talk about drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a long answer, so it could definitely that's a good idea over drinks. But in the beginning, as a just anecdote, we had so many bad names, like you saw, Botil, this and that, and we went with Whisk just because it sounded like whiskey, But also, we're thinking of acronyms, and we're like, okay, it's a weighted inventory system, whiskey. Let's go with Whisk. And we never looked back. But the K was like, we justify with SKUs. SK, we're like, it'd be SKUs, weighted inventory SKUs. But anyways, but the point was like, it doesn't really matter if it sounds good and it feels good to you. Like, Yeah, Whiskey, yeah. But no, honestly, a lot of people don't, and maybe it doesn't even nice, but they're like, oh, I like the name, how'd you come up with it? And like, we didn't put that much effort, like we brainstormed, we tested, it just sounded good. It was like, it just sounds cool, it's short, and that's what I'd recommend. Figure out something that just sounds cool, that feels right to you in the early days, and it might evolve anyways, right?
Okay, this was great. We can talk, you can have a little bit of time with them downstairs if we head down there to Chotomate. Angela's got a deal to close there actually at the bar. Next week is a mentor idea review, so big change of pace here, so you know it's a very important session. You're going to do a 3-minute pitch, and you're going to have slides. There's going to be no substantive talk from any mentors. There will be a lot of mentors, but you're going to be broken into heats. Working on that now, recruiting mentors who will be essentially scoring you and giving you feedback, and you'll be actually interacting with the feedback as opposed to just listening to it. So 3-minute pitch, probably 5, 6, 7 minutes of feedback, and then the next one goes. You're going to go in heats. And if you don't score above a 2, you're out of Founder Institute. So those are the rules. If you're borderline, you get a special assignment. So work on your pitch, practice it. I recommend against any notes. 3 minutes, you can, just don't read it verbatim. You can take in stuff, but you'll have slides that are going to help you out. And work on your slides. Hire a designer if you need, talk to some pros, whatever it takes. That's next week here.
I would say next to your landing page, your pitch deck. Just close second.
Thank you.
You bring your own laptop?
Yeah, well, we're going to run it on a laptop. You can bring a laptop, but also bring a USB key, figure out a way to make sure that works on whatever we're using.
If you have like,
yeah.
If you have like founders that you have.
Huh?
If you have founders.
Oh yeah, one pitch per company. So if you have multiple co-founders, you will be together and one of you will pitch. Right.
Are you going to stay? No.
When it's possible,
Yo, 2 is in, bro. Okay, good. 1.99. 1.99. You've done
That's right, yeah, that's right. The name really doesn't matter.
good.
Which kind of supports this point that you're
Yeah, at the bar. At the bar.
We'll be on it before you're ready.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
The way you described it and the way I just said words on my person. I know it's a very broad question, So not obvious, right? Endorsements, all these things, whatever. And then
Yeah, I think that's great that you have that excitement. You have to check that your product.
he just looks like a technical person and he's just doing things.
Yeah, I think so.
Whether it sounds in this place, but he's not.
He's focusing on that, like, he's focusing on like what he actually likes that, and then the deals are flowing to him really well.
Somebody that wants to grow or whatever,
And that's based on delivery.
Oh, it's the recording.
So they go and
They might edit it.
okay,
Like I had
all these things are still working on it. You hear him like doctor
someone new.
oh, you know, if you go try this.
It's like kind of like
Did you guys decide who was going to do the old one and you were going to do the
yeah, I called him on the way. I was like, I have everything else
Yeah.
so if we hadn't decided on our name, we were gonna bring some session on the name. So I was like, okay, let's do it.
And that's what a brand is.
That's brilliant, yeah. Good work. And I love that they weren't like sure that it was the same team, but that you were competitors. Obviously, they still get it, but one, resonated with the business.
At least I was like, okay, at least they understood me. And they got confused with the thing. And if they hadn't understood me and they thought I was doing something completely different,
Then it would have been a chance.
yeah.
But it's all good. Feels really right. I think it's gonna be great. Do you have a local IPA in your mind?
I was actually trying to do it this afternoon, but I didn't have a lot of time. I realized that I needed to finish the key messages but I went back to the pitch deck. I haven't finished that. Did you finish it? Yeah.
Like, I think another person is to follow everything or talking.
He's listening to I'm using I find it very good.
Slide bin.
Yeah. So it has like what I did is it has a pitch deck from like